The Subtrop Marketing Symposium is an annual event which we hold in White River, and we bring role players in the avocado, the mango and the lychee industries together. And the aim of the day is to discuss strategic issues which affect the marketing of the product. So it's not so much of a production, but it's all of the strategic environmental factors which affect the industries. We started off the day with some economic outlook, particularly for agriculture, but also macroeconomic factors which affect agriculture and the fruit industry, and especially the export industry, where we can see inflation going, etc., etc. Then we had a look at more the political side of what it means for us to be in BRICS, and how we then manipulate, or not manipulate, but how we maneuver within BRICS to our favor with regards to the fruit industry. One very important thing that came out today was climate change. So there was quite a lot of talks about what we can expect in terms of climate change, but also the forecast for weather for the coming season. And that sets the discussion for some presentations on carbon footprinting, the auditing of all of those things, and all of the measures about how we are now going to reduce our carbon footprint and reduce global warming. So that's a very, very topical thing at the moment. I think everybody can see that the climate is changing, etc. We also had some talks on things which affect the growth of the market. For example, the promotion of avocados and mangoes locally, what we're doing over the years, and how we do it, and the success that we're having with that. And in all of these things, market obviously is key, because without markets we can't produce our products. So we had a look at accreditations and how that affects farmers in terms of audits, and the burden that it also places on them, and how that can be reduced. And then, yes, we've got access to a number of new markets, but it doesn't mean that they're optimized. So how do we optimize the conditions of access to those markets in terms of phytosanitary issues, in terms of how we deal with the pests and diseases which those markets don't want us to export with our fruit, and then also the tariff conditions. How are we going to address the high import tariffs that we have in many of these new markets? And that's going to be an ongoing thing to make sure that we can export to those markets, but we can export significant volumes to the markets and do it profitably, and be able to compete with other countries like Peru, for example, which has access to many of those markets. For example, China, which is a big and important market, at a much lower import tariff than we do. So how are we going to maneuver around those things? How are we going to work with government to reduce import tariffs, etc., so that these industries in this country, the avocado, the mango and the lychee industries, can thrive and continue to expand?
My name is Andrew Shaw. I'm responsible for strategy and planning at Transnet Group. Transnet faced significant challenges over the last 3 to 4 years in terms of a drop-off of volume of freight moved, performance issues in the ports, and there's a need for us to recover some of that volume, improve on performance. A lot of that is a consequence of quality of equipment, inability to spend on equipment renewal, which is a funding constraint, but also challenges around safety and security on the network. Theft of copper line has reduced our ability to run trains effectively, and so the volume of freight has reduced, particularly on some of the big mining flows, coal, manganese, iron ore. We're in a process of implementing a recovery plan, and the recovery plan really changes the trajectory around volume moved, with a big focus on improving operational performance, improving the predictability of equipment. We've engaged with the OEMs directly for rail and port equipment on the maintenance side, so that our equipment is more effectively maintained, able to operate more effectively. We focused on shuts in terms of improving the quality of rail infrastructure, and all of these kind of ventures to improve our recovery. So our recovery target last year was 152 million tons. We didn't quite meet that. We were at 149, but that was a shift up from where we would have landed if we just continued the existing trajectory. This year, our target is 170 million tons. We're a little behind target. We're about 4% behind target, but we hope that we'll be able to get much closer to the 170 by the end of the financial year. On the port side, we have a target of 4.4 million TEUs moved. We're well short of that from a from a volume throughput, but some of that is also talks to the weakness in the South African economy. So it's not entirely all performance-based. In fact, in some of the port terminals, performance has improved quite substantially as we brought new equipment in, as we've got additional gangs operating. We've started a new shift, so we're operating 24 hours a day in most of the terminals. So those all have a positive impact on recovery and the recovery rate. So we're quietly confident that we're getting closer. If we move to the policy dimension, freight and logistics policy is really being changed substantially. 2022, there's a white paper on rail transformation, which creates separation within Transnet between an infrastructure manager that owns the infrastructure and Transnet Freight Rail that operates the system. They will be separated. They will be created as a separate entity with ultimately with its own board, but at this point with its own management structure. This really follows the same process that's been followed for ports, where we have an infrastructure provider or a landlord port authority and TPT as an operator. So that change has a big impact on Transnet. We have to transform other parts of the business because one of the key elements of this policy change is the involvement of third-party rail operators on our network. We would like them to pick up quite considerable volume. We can't quite open the network up at this point because the tariffing issue has to be resolved. So we're waiting for IRAC, which is the interim regulator, to provide recommendations to the minister. The minister in turn will create recommendations for what the tariffing regime will be. And just thereafter, we said a month thereafter, we will provide access to third parties. So we're ready to provide access, but we just need those dimensions to be in place. As part of empowering that third-party access, we are in the process of setting up a leasing company through public-private partnership. We will own a minority stake in that company, and we will refurbish a lot of our B fleet diesel locomotives to open that up. We're also in the process of initiating a range of concessions, starting with DCT2, which is the second of the two terminals in Durban. But we hope to expand those to serve a number of key industries going forward.
So our mandate as a PPCB comes from the Department of Agriculture. Our main function is to inspect all the perishables that gets exported out of South Africa. In terms of the work that we do, we first start at packhouse level, where we check the quality of the perishable product. We look at phytosanitary issues as well as food safety and traceability of the product. Once we're done with all our processes in the packhouse, we're able to issue an export certificate. The export certificate is used by the Department of Agriculture to issue a phytosanitary certificate that is required by exporters to send to importing country requirements. So in terms of our second mandate, we're focusing on en route temperature management of products that gets exported. Once we do the processes that we have to do, we issue a temperature instruction letter or a pre-cooling certificate, also depending on the import country requirements. Also in the PPCB, we do quite a lot of research and innovation. We do this by collaborating with government as well as industry bodies so that we don't duplicate the work that gets done, that we do. And also, as part of the work that we do, we have a standards desk where we update clients as well as the Department of Agriculture in terms of protocols that need to be followed. We do assist with that as well. So the PPCB has got a laboratory that is based in Centurion. At the current moment, we've got 4 programs there. Pesticide analytical program, where we test for pesticides or minerals in terms of all the produce that gets exported, but as well as local products. We've got a mycotoxin analytical program where we test for aflatoxin mainly. We have the dairy analytical product where we test for the dairy component, as well as a fat analytical program. We are in the process of looking at a microbiological program where we can do basic microbiology tests, so that we've got a basket of programs that can assist local as well as our exporters in the country, South Africa. So if one was to look at the value proposition that the PPC brings in terms of what is it that we do throughout the value chain, for the last financial year, we can quantify that to over 1 billion that we've managed to save the industry as a whole.